It's kind of funny when I was thinking about us starting to do this interview, and even without me saying hello or anything else, right now as we start this, I really want it heard from everybody that from the first day I met you a couple of years ago, I knew, and I think a lot of other people knew this conversation was going to happen. And that is, of course, you being a Juno nominee. And I'd like to say congratulations on making sure what I thought actually happened. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. That's actually really cool. Like, we met at the Juno Masterclass Showcase, which was a program I did in, I think, 2018. So
That's
it's
right.
4 years later, and yeah, Juno nominee is really it's really incredible to be here.
I'm just curious, where were you when you heard about it?
I was in an Airbnb. I was doing this thing with Flow.
Mm.
So I was there every day of the week. And so I think it was Tuesday. It was my second day of so I just went back to the Airbnb. And it's funny, we were talking with like uh, Kirk Diamond, who's also a nominee as
Yeah.
well, at the station. And I was like getting nervous because we started talking about it at the station. And I was like, oh man, like I wonder. And so I went back to the Airbnb and I sat down and watched the broadcast. And I was very happy and astounded to see Stock Exchange, my project, was nominated. So,
Much, much deserved. Let's talk about the project. Let's jump right into that. What, again, and you just said it, but I always like to make it official. What is the Juno nominated music called?
the
What
pro-
category? Hold on. What category is it under, and how does it represent you in your career right now? What's it about?
yeah, so the category I believe is best rap album slash EP of the year,
Hmm.
which obviously represents a lot. Me being a hip hop artist, rapper, singer from Toronto.
And what is it called?
Stock Exchange. The project is called Stock Exchange. So make sure you guys check that out. Um, what does it mean to me to
Mhm.
have this nomination? I think it's just showing that I'm moving in the right direction. It's letting me know that people are receiving the music, they are resonating with the music. I mean, on top of the nominee, people in real life, when I'm going to events and stuff, are letting me know that in real time. So it's just kind of and more of an external validator of what I'm seeing happening in my actual life. And it's really encouraging as well for me, like working on new music now. It's like I feel like I keep going up, and hopefully it's representative of a trajectory that isn't going to stop. So
No, because what was it? A few years ago, you won. Was it SoCan?
I won the SoCan, I think it was a songwriting award. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you got that, and like there have been so many things happening in your career. How do you think you have grown, not just professionally but personally too? Because you were in a group, you went solo, things just started to happen for you. How do you think you've grown again, personally and professionally?
Man, I feel like I've grown a lot. It's funny. I was listening to my first project yesterday that I put out in 2010. And, you know, there are so many elements of who I've always been that is still there. But there's a lot of growth, I think, in terms of songwriting, in terms of my exposure as an adult, my ideologies and how I flesh those ideas out, how I communicate my ideas. I think, obviously with growth, with age, there's that refinement, So, but I feel like I always kind of had a visionary element to my musicality. I always wanted it to be a story or something that has more depth to it than just fun. I also want to make music and make people vibe and have fun and party. But there's always been an element to me that's like, how do I make this deeper? How do I like concoct this cocktail, if you will, and like layer it and make it feel like a new experience that isn't something somebody's heard before, isn't something somebody's felt before, And I feel like I'm still doing that. And all these accolades, like the Polaris, the Prism Prize, the SoCan Award, even the Juno nominee now, is again like it's just kind of like validating that there's something that I'm doing that I think is dope that other people are like, yeah, it is dope, and it's really cool because like I said, I've been putting out music since 2010, 2009 for no accolades and very little recognition, and it wasn't a streaming game back then, and no monetary compensation. And so much of that has changed. Like I'm a full-time musician now. I really say this is what I do, but when I look back, like this is what I've always done. I was just, people didn't know yet, you know?
You know, it's funny you say that because I can remember one of the last in person interviews that we did. We had talked before the interview, and you had talked about, I think it was either that week or that month, that you were planning on quitting your job to become a full time musician. You also mentioned, too, about the Polaris Music Prize, and I had the honor of being in the audience when you won,
Oh.
and we had a chance to talk afterwards. What was that like for you?
I think that was the beginning of the recognition that is continuing now. Like it was the first time that I put out a project that people cared about, the city cared about, you know, and like it was being recognized. It was also the most vulnerable project that I had done in terms of like the topics on the project. It was the most risky, I guess you could say. I got to a place where I wasn't scared to talk about some of the topics and themes that I used to kind of like stray away from when people didn't even know me. So it was really interesting to put out a project that I felt was pretty controversial, not the normal narrative, and then have it be recognized on the platform like the Polaris, be recognized as the best album of the year by that entity. It was yeah, like I think it jump started my career for sure. You know, what followed that was show guarantees going up, more opportunities coming in. And, you know, I feel like the timing was really dope too, because I got that validation maybe 6 months, 7 months before the pandemic, you know? So we didn't even really have a year to like work the project post that win because the world went into a lockdown. But that validation was kind of already instilled. And that's one thing that I learned about, you know, myself and my musicality was that it's like I weirdly needed this external validation that I always tell artists when they ask these questions. Oh, like what would you recommend the artists like think about when they're like, don't wait for the validation, because really it comes from that self-belief. Once I believed what other people were saying, my work ethic and my output changed, and it led to all of this. It led to the sorority, us being in a group, because I was in that cipher and all these millions of people like, wow, who is this rapper, who are these rappers? That was like my turning point, and that was in 2016. But I had been putting out music way before that, and so yeah, like I think, you know, the Polaris was just another installment of validations, but probably the biggest one, the most notable one of my career in 2019. Like definitely like a pivotal moment.
Um, and I you say this word with respect, calmest I've seen you because you have so much energy. And I always say, for someone in small in stature, you are huge wherever you go. Um, what do you think has changed for you in now being able to concentrate that energy to where it goes? Has things over the pandemic changed you? Has what the world has become in the last 2 years changed you as a person and changed you musically too?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like, yeah, a big ball of energy, which I still am, but I've definitely calmed down a little bit. I think that like where I talked about refinement of the musicality, the lyricism, the songwriting, there's also been a refinement of like just my behavior and my mannerisms that has come from experiences, particularly from the pandemic, where external validation wasn't a thing, but also external experiences was no longer a thing. I think I pulled a lot from places I traveled for shows and like energy from other people when I'm at shows. So it was like, okay, how do I who is Haviah Mighty if I'm not at these shows or if I'm not doing interviews? Like if I'm stuck in the house pretty much, like who is this person? And it was an interesting thing for me because I couldn't answer that question when I first, you know, asked myself this question in 2020. I didn't have an answer. I was like, well, I'm a musician. I like to make songs. I would try to find things about me that were separate from the music. And I couldn't because I was just so laser focused on what I was doing. Um, and the pandemic forced me to think about my life experiences, to kind of like focus on what those things are and what they mean. A lot of my music prior to 2020, and even on Stock Exchange, because I was writing it kind of at the same time, like throughout the pandemic, a lot of the music is reflective of my opinions on the things that I'm seeing and the things I'm learning. But I wasn't always digging the deepest that I could in who I actually am as a person and what my experiences are and how those things have shifted me individually. I'd always kind of like fall back onto like the societal aspect of like even personal experiences. What does this mean for like society? How is this impactful to like other people? And I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that your personal experiences that aren't necessarily uh they're not necessarily, how do I want to say this? My personal experiences that have nothing to do with society and the impacts of society and that sort of thing, those things are also quite relatable to people. Like people live experiences and the things that they go through. Sometimes that is enough, and it doesn't always have to be very curated. It doesn't always have to be super structured. So that was the biggest thing that I learned, is that the authenticity that is within me, like I can let that shine through by literally just spending time with myself, having conversations with myself, reflecting on things that I'm living that has nothing to do with the outside world. And it makes sense being in a pandemic because the outside world was off limits. I learned there's so much more to me than just my observations of what's going on in the world. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. Does that mean with this new perspective, there's new music on the horizon for 2022?
100%. There's definitely music on the horizon. I'm working on stuff every day. And yeah, I can't say too much yet, but I would say I don't think people will have to wait too long to hear
Yes.
more from me.
But we're going to be hearing a lot from you as we lead up to the Junos. Any word yet? Any plans and what's going on? Uh, do you know? Are you going to be in a showcase maybe? Or is there any kind of hints that you can give us?
I don't know anything,
Mm.
actually. I don't even know when they'll be announcing that category, whether it will be actually at the actual broadcasted Junos or whether it will be at like the pre-broadcast kind of ceremony that they do. I
Yeah.
really don't know anything. What I can say is leading up to that, I'm really working on this new music. I'm making the soundtrack for hopefully everybody's summer. I'm really focused on really just literally listening to Stock Exchange and seeing how I can elevate myself. And, it's funny, whenever I make a project, I'm sure other artists feel the same way. Whenever I make a body of work, art, a song, anything, by the time you end up putting it out, you feel like you've already grown beyond like that piece of art. So Stock Exchange was a project that I kind of rolled out over a year. I started putting out singles in November of 2020 and then ended November 2021. So it's like that whole year, I'm growing beyond what it is I've already created. So I feel like the growth is exponential. I say this every time between every project, but it genuinely feels like a real, sentiment within. And so I'm already working on, like, I was already thinking of new ideas when my final single was coming out, which actually there is a music video coming for that. So that's one thing that I can say, is that
Yes.
there is a music video for another song, and it's fun. It's a little different than a lot of my other music videos, but I feel like that fun factor. Sometimes I'm focused on like impact, but right now there's a lot that's going on. There's so much to intake, and it's actually too much for a lot of people. I've had a lot of conversations with friends and family, and it's like sometimes we need the reminder of like the good things that we have, because we've had constant reminders over the last 2.5 years of the negativity that surrounds us, and there's so much of it. um, so right now I'm really trying to focus on tapping into things that are a little bit different from that, so that we have that balance, because the news is going to tell us the
Mm.
bad stuff that's happening regardless. We're going to hear about it. So yeah, I'm just trying to bring a little bit of a different energy and add to the positivity that people are feeling, hopefully.
You've done that. You've done that from day one, from when I met you, my queen. I am so proud and happy for you. I still remember when, and I do believe it was Calgary, when we were there for the Junos, for your showcase, and you got to walk the red carpet. I remember it was all
Yeah.
tight and everything. And
Yes.
I was towards the end of it, but we got a chance to talk.
Yeah.
And we kind of talked about what is it going to be like when you do become a Juno nominee. We get to do this now for real because you are a Juno nominee. And crossing fingers, whatever happens, you may turn out to be that Juno Award winner. But the thing I love most of all, no matter what, the word Juno is now connected to your career, and it is much deserved. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So I'm gonna see you on the red carpet
Oh, hell yeah, you're going to see me on the
then.
red
Okay.
carpet. Don't worry, my microphone will be waving you down, and I cannot
Yes.
wait to talk to you. Either way, again, much deserved.
Thank you so much.